Stick around to hear the real story behind selling up and making the big move. What if you could wake up in a new place every day, live on your own terms, and travel to explore the beauty of Australia? Sound like a dream? In this, the first of 2 episodes, I'm sitting down to hear the real story of why this couple sold their home and lifestyle to pursue a dream, living in a motorhome and travelling Australia full time. But it's not as easy as it sounds. It would appear the first few weeks were filled with doubt and very big adjustments. Was this the dream they'd planned? This afternoon I'm talking to a couple I know well. Let me introduce you to Ath and Deb. Nearly 2 years ago now, you made a decision to change the course of your life. What was that decision?
Well, we decided that life was too short, so we'd better start living. So we thought, let's sell up and let's hit the road.
When you say life was too short, what were the circumstances around that? And what took your mind to that moment?
For me, the decision came because I was made redundant from my full-time job after 7 years. I was quite shocked by it, but at the same time it provided a really good opportunity to change my life, and unfortunately that meant Ath had to change his too.
Well, Ath, you had a job, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I had a job. I was working full-time, but, you know, I could pick up a job anywhere, but I was close to retirement age, and, you know, we're both orphans, so let's get out there and see what Australia's got to offer.
It meant selling everything and making a huge move, but life is short, and when people around you start to pass away, you start to think, well, what am I doing sitting here in a house,
Waiting for life to happen.
Ath still worked full time, and when I was made redundant, I still had a voiceover business where I do voiceovers. So
Where you could take it on the road.
And so Ath and I chatted about it, and we decided that this was something that we could potentially do for our lifestyle.
So it mustn't have been an immediate decision. It must have been something that you toyed with, or am I wrong? Did it in fact immediately pop into your head and say, "Yep, no, this is what we're going to do"?
Look, I think I've been toying with travelling around Australia, circumnavigating Australia in a boat for like years and years and years. It sort of got close to the point where it could happen, but I had to realise the fact that a boat is much more expensive to do it than in any other type of transport vehicle or vessel. And also my partner didn't have the confidence that I had in doing it, and maybe my confidence in myself and my ability on the water was way overrated. So I thought, well, that's probably not going to be realised, the dream, so what's the next best thing? Let's do it. Let's travel Australia. Why not do it full time?
When we started looking, the funny thing is we started looking and thinking we could live in a 6-metre motorhome. I remember Ath going into a Winnebago one day, and it was a bit like the song that popped into my head at the time was Holiday Road. What was it? Chevy Chase Vacation, Holiday Road, and this Winnebago looked just like that. And Athel started looking around, and he went, "Yeah, this is probably the size we need."
So this decision you've made is that you want to travel around Australia, and the way that you're going to do that is in a motorhome. Obviously, you thought perhaps circumnavigating in a boat wasn't going to be the answer. Why driving? Why not keeping your home, sitting at home and just flying, for example?
The decision to do that in a motorhome and do it full time and sell everything, I think, was a pretty easy decision for me. I did have a great attachment to the house we were living in, or the unit we were living in. It was really nice, really comfortable, but I didn't want to have to worry about, if I rented it out. I didn't have to want to worry about having to fix stuff and what if I had a bad tenant, or what if they trashed the place. And also, to be truly honest with you, there wasn't enough money. We didn't have enough cash. Like, we could have bought a really budget motorhome,
And there's nothing wrong with that.
and
You
if
know.
did it, and did it that way. But started to put together a list of things that we must have in the motorhome, and we wanted to be independent with a lot of water so that we could stay off grid for weeks at a time. Enough power that we could stay off grid for the same amount of time, and to live fairly comfortably, because we're gonna have 2 dogs with us as well.
Yeah, and we started to have a look and looked at numerous motorhomes. We always knew it would be motorhome because we'd never had a caravan, we'd never travelled with a caravan, so we had no idea of what that would be like. But we did a 3-week trip in New Zealand in a motorhome with Mum and Dad. And we had a blast, and the motorhome was easy. So we started out with the motorhome and and push bikes.
It's really important because a lot of people, when they think about circumnavigating Australia in a van, it's in a caravan. It's interesting that you were initially drawn to a motorhome, and part of that possibly could have been that you had animals with you, and as you say, it was far more comfortable, and it was something you had experienced. You have done all of that, and now you go to sell your home and all of your possessions. What did that feel like?
Yeah, it was
Hard,
I
but
think
good.
once the
Hard, but
decision was
exciting.
made, then we really, well, I put to work selling everything that we had that I didn't want to keep on Facebook Marketplace, because where else can you sell anything? Debbie quite tells a funny story about how people would turn up at my place
like
and
drug
money
deals,
would change hands and
The gate had
things would
opened, this
disappear.
bar, money had come through, something
Yeah.
would go out.
So we got to the point
really
where
good.
I thought, silly of me, I thought we'd got rid of enough stuff so that the motorhome could turn up on the day of settlement, and we could empty everything out of the house into the motorhome, and off we'd drive. And eventually that day came, and boy, was it a shock, because the motorhome turned up there and we filled. We like could barely just jump into the seats, and it was just chockers. And there was still another trailer load, and still another half a trailer after that of stuff that we just couldn't get rid of. And so emergency called to get another skip. I mean, I hate throwing stuff away. I'm not a hoarder, but I like to keep stuff that.
Maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
You keep things that are valuable.
Yeah, I could picture them being handy in the future. That, yeah, you've got to draw the line somewhere. So a lot of stuff went into the skip.
You've sold the house. It's gone unconditional, and the motorhome has turned up on your front doorstep, and you have filled it to the brim with all of the things that you thought you might need. And then in addition, you had some other things that you had to think about where you were going to store those.
Good old brother-in-law turned up with his trailer, and we filled that up. Well, first neither of us had a license for the motorhome that we bought.
It's a light rigid, so
It's a light rigid, so neither of us has got a license, but my brother-in-law did have one, so he came and saved the day. We drove out to his place where we planned on doing the driving test, and also he volunteered a part of his shed to store some of our stuff in. I couldn't bring myself to leave everything at his place because it was taking up valuable room in his shed, and I know how much important it is to have space in a shed. I said, no, I'll go and get a small storage shed. So we did, and it was only a
1.5 by 3.
1.5 by 3. So it only cost us like a grand a year.
Yeah.
God knows how long we're going to keep that for.
But we haven't even half filled it.
Yeah,
So.
I'm not even sure what's in that storage shed
couple of
now.
them.
I remember visiting you in and around the first week that you drove your motorhome away from your life and into a new life, and you were like deers in headlights. It was pretty interesting, I have to say. I would have thought you were in shock if I was going to say anything at all. So how long do you think it took you to get past that initial shock of changing your lifestyle?
Very good question. My sister has a good way of describing how we looked, and she says that when we arrived at her place, she says it looks like our motorhome drove up and vomited. And she was right, it really did. When we have a look at old photos, and we had everything that was in the motorhome ended up on the ground outside, and that's where everything started to try to be sorted out. 4 weeks would be probably the toughest, was getting everything sort of in a place in the motorhome and working out what was then going to go into the small storage shed.
So would you say it was like trying to make sense of what
sense of the space, or the lack of space, I suppose, for what we had. I mean, we were very good. I think we had been downsizing over the years as we moved from place to place with Mum and Dad, and sort of culling things then. But we still had a lot. Most of it was in Athel's shed, of course. But then then it was really just working out, like when you go to a place and you learn where everything is in a kitchen. You have to, you've got to work out where everything's going to work for you in your motorhome and in the very limited amount of space that you do have.
And of course, your motorhome hasn't moved. It's gone to its place at your sister's, and it's stayed there for that period of time while you've tried to sort things out. So what you haven't got yet is adding that difference, and that's the driving of your home on our roads. And which to you obviously was very new because you hadn't held a license for a light rigid. Yeah. So how did you feel about then taking your home on wheels onto our roads?
We were parked up for about 2 weeks with the vomited motorhome. Then it was all sorted out, and then Athel had an appointment. Had his driving license test.
Yeah, well, I thought it was going to be as simple as driving out to where my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were, just going to the transport department, walking in, booking a test, coming back home with the license. But as is everything in Australia after COVID, there is a shortage of labour everywhere, and guess what? There is nobody to do tests. They were booked out for at least 8 weeks, I think it was, in Warwick itself. But I could find a test in Stanthorpe, so and I had to wait.
2 weeks. Yours was 1st of September. Well, we weren't twiddling our thumbs. We were working out how the motorhome worked.
Pulling our heels, maybe you could call it, because we were in the ready to hit the road mode, but we just kept having to wait and wait, and then luckily there was a lot of pressure on me to get my license. I mean, you sort of. When you lead up to this point, you think, oh, what if I don't get it? Turned out it was, pretty straightforward. But what if I don't get it? Then I've got to wait another 4 weeks for another test, or 2 weeks, or whatever it is.
And mine wasn't for 5 weeks after yours.
Yeah, and we wanted Debbie to drive as well.
Yay! Goodbye, L plates.
Why?
Hello, license. Hello.
Once I got my license, we quite literally just drove straight off from
that was our first
the
trip.
transport department. We left Stanthorpe and headed south.
You're 13 months down the track from selling your property and purchasing your motorhome and having travelled some of Australia. Has this change of lifestyle made a difference in your life? And if so, how?
Absolutely. Can't say that, sorry. Has it made a difference? Oh, yes, it sure has. It's nothing like living in a fixed residence. You're moving all the time. You can, for us, because we live on the road and we don't have a time frame, we can spend as long as or as little time as we like wherever we go. So yeah, it's been amazing. It opens your eyes, and for me, it took a fair while to sort of feel the routine. I think I found out that I like routine. I didn't know that about myself before. For me, it was a matter of finding a new routine that worked.
So it's about finding yourself, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And another difference, there's something that I think a lot of people don't talk about, and I think it's something that some people might struggle with really hard, is how your relationship will go in such a confined space. And I said to a friend recently, she said, she was telling me a story about some people who got together and decided they'd go around Australia in a caravan. There were 6 of them, I think, and in one caravan. I'm not sure how that went, but I said to her, well, lock yourself in your bathroom, because I'd seen how the size of her bathroom. I said, lock yourself in the bathroom with a television and 2 chairs and a table, and like pretend it's raining outside and you can't go anywhere for a week, and see how your relationship goes, because it's tough. Sometimes it's really tough, no matter how much you love the person you're with. When you can't get away, you've got nowhere to go. How are you going to handle that? And so I think it's a real eye-opener to relationships and to compromise.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much got to sort it out fairly early that you like each other, and yeah, you've got to be fairly tolerant too. You know, I think you've got to really wind down your reactionary senses if you've got any, but you've got to really not go off, quickly. You've got to have a slow fuse, I guess.
I mean, that's a really good point. Well, it's a good bit of advice at any rate.
It's tough. It can be really tough.
Yeah,
it can.
And so, what sort of strategies have you put in place, do you think, that have helped you get through that adjustment?
I think really thinking before you react. If you're one of those persons, you've got to really think and count to 10.
Yeah,
count to 10. What's the situation? Is it really that dire? And
treat each other with respect.
Oh yeah, treat each other with respect at all times. But yeah, just think that life isn't really that dire, and it's not that super critical and important. I mean, chill. Take a chill pill, relax, enjoy your
respect some
trip.
space. If you're sitting
Enjoy
there
your
quietly, let that person sit there quietly.
And probably take a step outside and have a walk around.
If it's not raining.
If it's not
Which
raining.
it did a lot in Victoria.
Ath and Deb gave us an honest and brutal look at what it is like to take the plunge, selling your house and comfortable life to pursue the dream of travelling across Australia on an adventure. Those first few weeks were tough, filled with uncertainty and struggle as they adjusted to their life on wheels. But what they've learned is the real adventure is not just taking those big steps, it's also what you learn about yourself. If you're dreaming of doing the same, this next episode gives you real life experience and an understanding of both the challenges and joys of living this lifestyle.